Senate Agriculture Committee Chairman John Boozman, thank you very much for joining us.
No, thank you so much for having me, as always.
Absolutely. Now, I watched the Senate Agriculture Committee's hearing on its version of a crypto market structure bill, and there certainly was some contention between Democrats and Republicans, but ultimately the committee voted along party lines to advance the bill, marking a major development for digital asset regulation. Now, in a statement immediately following the hearing, you called the vote a critical step toward creating clear rules for digital asset markets, but acknowledged that there's still more work ahead. Can you elaborate on what this development signals to you as chairman of the committee?
Well, I think it's really important. And what we were aiming at first was protection for the consumers. I think we've done a good job of that. And then also allowing the industry to grow as times change. So many Americans now are involved in the crypto industry. The crypto industry itself wants to be regulated so that they can attract pension plans and banks and things like that. So they do realize it's important that they have a regulated entity. Right now it's the Wild West. And so I think we came up with a good product. We've been working on this for months and months and months and really made good progress. Cory Booker, who was the chief negotiator on the Democrats' side, he's head of the subcommittee on the Ag Committee of this particular thing, really did a good job. And we made a lot of headway. It wasn't a bipartisan, final product, but we changed the bill significantly. And I think we'll get there in the future as we work forward in the remaining steps.
And it certainly will be very interesting to see what happens with that. Now, you touched on this, but can you just take our viewers through what this bill would do exactly? In your statement last week, you said the measure would establish a clear legal definition of digital commodities and would create consumer protections, as you mentioned today, including conflict of interest safeguards and customer disclosure requirements. Can you take us through some of the other key points?
Well, that's really the main thing, are the things that you mentioned. We have a few sticking points with our colleagues on the other side regarding where DeFi should be, what that should look like. And there's a few things like that. But overall, again, what we wanted was just good consumer protection. Trying to get some definitions straight. This really builds on the House bill. They did a great job, attracted a very bipartisan effort there. So we took that bill as the framework and then, again, modified it some. Not a great deal, but modified it some. And we feel like then the next step now is to work with banking. Our part of it is very narrow and has to do with the commodities aspect of it, which really does entail quite a bit of it. But we'll have to work with banking and go forward, and then also working with our House counterparts to make sure that we all are on the same page as we get this thing passed.
And to clarify for our viewers, you were referencing the Clarity Act, which passed the House over the summer. And as you noted, you did in fact work on the Senate Agriculture Committee's version of crypto market structure with Democratic Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. And that happened last year. But Booker walked away from the version the committee voted on last week, which he stressed was different than the prior version. During the hearing, he said it wasn't in accord with the principles laid out in November in a bipartisan way. And we'll get into some of the specific issues Booker and other senators had with the updated text in just a bit. But I'm wondering, what made you feel it was the right move to proceed with the bill after losing bipartisan support from that earlier version?
Well, the earlier version was a framework. It was a working sheet. And a lot of it was bracketed. In other words, it was in red because we couldn't agree to agree on the particular stuff. And so because of that, we had many, many changes that we included from the Booker team into it to try and make it appeal more to them. And again, which were fine changes. We also listened to industry. They had some concerns with the framework, so we took those into account, and when we could, tried to accommodate them. Again, always looking at protecting the consumer. So a lot of that was just bracketed stuff that there really was no agreement. And that's why we weren't able to agree to put our names, both of our names, even on that. Well, we did put our names on that framework, but much of it was bracketed and subject to, we can't agree. We're going to spend some more time working on it. And we just never could get to agreement on those things. So it made it difficult. So at some point, we felt like we needed to move forward. I think in going ahead and voting and, advancing the bill out of committee, that will give some momentum. And we still have plenty of time to work on the things that they're concerned about.
And let's go through some of the issues Senator Booker and other Democratic members of the Senate Agriculture Committee had with the text. One big issue had to do with President Trump's crypto ventures. Booker said Democratic concerns with the bill include the fact that President Trump is, quote, grifting on crypto himself, which he called ridiculous. What is your response to his concerns about the president and his family's involvement in crypto?
Well, there are a number of issues like that came up at the end of the hearing in the form of amendments. And I have sympathy that, those protections need to be included. The reality is those things are not part of our committee. We're charged with a very narrow portion of this. And so those are things that we need to work with banking. We need to work with the House. Nobody's addressed that. And then again, come up with a solution. So it's not that we were against trying to address concerns. Like I say, our committee is pretty narrow in the jurisdiction that it has regarding the commodities aspect. So banking plays a major part. And then again, the House.
As you just mentioned, during Thursday's hearing, Democrats offered amendments that would have included banning public officials, including the president, from engaging in the crypto industry and addressing involvement in digital commodities from foreign adversaries. None were approved. And I know you said part of the reason was because the issues are outside the Agriculture Committee's jurisdiction. So what happens next as it relates to a crypto market structure bill? Do you think there's a chance it can advance with all those concerns from Democrats in the mix?
No, I do. I think there's a real willingness for many Democrats to get there on some of the subjects. In fact, all of the subjects that you just talked about, the amendments concerning banning ATMs and, all of these things that really are being abused right now. Those are very valid. They need to be done. The protections need to be put in place, but it simply wasn't under the jurisdiction of our committee. One of the members on the Senate side said you should go down and look at the banking papers in the SCIF. That's where you go and look at the secret stuff. And my point was, well, it is in the banking papers. It's not in the agriculture, portfolio down there. These are things that again, banking is going to have to deal with, and we're going to have to deal with them. But they're going to run the lead. As far as going forward, I do think that there's a real willingness for both sides to get there. So many Americans are involved in this. It needs to be regulated, both for the consumer, so importantly. Also, it needs to be regulated in such a way that we allow it to grow where it doesn't push offshore, and then there's no regulation at all. And that's really where we're seeing the things that we read about that are so bad right now. So I think that banking will do its homework. They've got an issue with banking concerning, the ability to do rewards or interest or whatever. And that's, certainly a concern for both sides as to how that gets worked out. Those are difficult issues, but I do think they'll be resolved.
Yeah, I want to expand on that because last month, the Senate Banking Committee's consideration of its version of a crypto market structure bill was postponed at the very last minute after opposition from the crypto industry, including Coinbase. During your committee's hearing last week, you said you look forward to working with the Banking Committee on issues discussed during your markup. You mentioned it again today. Those points include scams linked to crypto ATMs, which you mentioned. Did those discussions start yet? Where does everything stand right now, especially as it relates to the key concerns Democratic senators had with the Senate Agriculture Committee's draft of the bill?
No, very much, and that's one of the reasons that I'm very optimistic that we're going to get this done. We had our markup and literally haven't missed a beat in regard to working with our Democratic colleagues to find solutions to these problems. So, yes, those discussions are ongoing. We very much enjoy working with Senator Booker. He's been a very willing partner, and he's very knowledgeable about the subject. And like I say, he wants to get there for all the reasons that we talked about. Both sides just have a little bit different view of of how you do that, but both sides want to get there. And so the fact that we've been able to continue to have those communication lines open and working is good. And then likewise, the same is true of banking. They've been very helpful on both sides.
Now, this week, a gathering led by the president's crypto advisor, Patrick Witt, took place where crypto and banking executives discussed provisions in the crypto market structure bill. Two sources from the crypto industry told CNBC a big focus was on the topic of stablecoin rewards, which you brought up today. That issue helped put a pause on the Senate Banking Committee's hearing on crypto market structure last month. The banking industry has been urging Congress to close what they deemed a loophole in the Genius Act that allowed intermediaries to pay interest on stablecoins. Banks have argued that this would lead to a flight of deposits from the insured banking system, potentially threatening financial stability. Some crypto companies, especially Coinbase, have been fighting back against that claim. What's your take on that point of contention? And are you optimistic there will be some sort of resolution to help advance the Senate Banking Committee's version of a crypto market structure bill so that there is a chance it can combine with your committee's version and ultimately move to the full Senate for a vote?
No, I think you've really brought up a good point. That's really a significant contention. And you've got two powerful forces. You've got the banking industry and now the crypto industry that is still in its infancy, but is gaining dramatically almost as we speak. I think both sides have legitimate concerns. And at the end of the day, because there is a willingness to get there, I think that we'll find a compromise that both sides, it might not be exactly what either side wants, but the key is finding something that both sides can live with. And that's what we're really working hard to do. And I think not only are Democrats and Republicans cooperating, but also the industries are trying to find a path forward also. So I'm optimistic. I think that we can get this done. There's a lot of forces pushing it forward. And, we'd like to celebrate passage in the not too distant future.
So what's your outlook for a timeline as to when the Senate Banking Committee could be ready to proceed to markup of its version of a crypto market structure bill? Are you hopeful that could happen this year and that we could then see a crypto market structure bill reach the full Senate for a vote, especially with all the drama tied to the government shutdown and the midterms approaching, which could shift the focus away from advancing crypto regulation?
No, I think that we'll get it done this year for sure. And Senate banking, the leaders over there on both sides are very, very capable people. And I think the Ag Committee's proved that it's very capable. Also, we've got great membership, very serious membership that wants to get this done. And so it's just going to take everybody working together. There's going to be some compromise involved, but I feel very strongly that we'll get it done this year. And this is something that literally we've been working on for years. The consumers need to be protected. We all agree with that. And this is the only way to do it. So on the other hand, we're creating an infrastructure for a new, essentially a new entity. So we want to get it right. The other thing that's really important is we've got to get the CFTC, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, constituted right now. We have a very capable leader over there, but we just have a person. So we've got to make sure that we get, the commission in place. The other thing is we need to make sure that we give them the funding that they're going to need. We're going to give them significant increased responsibility. So I'm committed. I think the members of our committee and banking also hopefully are committed to giving them the resources that they're going to need in order to administer the program.
So you mentioned that you're optimistic it could happen this year, but are you thinking weeks or months?
I'm thinking months probably, but not a lot of months. I think it's going to be months. This is something that, like I say, everybody is really working hard right now, and I think getting it through a committee has kind of shown that we can make some momentum, and that's been a good thing. But no, there's a lot of serious work being done right now to resolve the issues that you mentioned and are so up on.
It certainly seems that way, and it'll be very interesting to see if your forecast comes to fruition. We'll be following. Senate Agriculture Committee Chairman John Boozman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, as always.
Absolutely.